Hello and welcome to the YMS podcast, where I like to bring you interesting stories from the world of cars and motorsport. I'm your host Yasin, and in this episode, I have my first returning guest, Yousuf Ashraf, who, since we last spoke over 2 years ago, has gone from being a hobby YouTuber and student to working for Evo magazine, one of the best publications in the world. Welcome to the channel, Yousuf. How are you?
Thanks, man. It's been 2 years, is it? That's
I think it's
insane.
been, I think it's been more than 2 years since we did our
Yeah,
podcast.
that is crazy, isn't it? A lot has happened since then.
A lot has happened to you since then. Congratulations.
Yeah.
I'm so glad that you actually now a Evo journalist.
Oh,
I
thanks,
told
man.
everybody about it, by the way, when you actually announced it.
Oh,
Even my parents knew about it. It's like my
oh,
dad didn't even know
amazing.
what Evo magazine is, but I still told him about it. I
Yeah,
said, "Got a friend
it
working for
sounds
Evo."
cool though, doesn't it?
It does.
Evo, like even if you don't know what it is, it just sounds pretty cool.
Yeah, it does sound cool. But let's talk about how this journey started, because obviously you went from being a student studying philosophy from memory, and
Yeah, that's
then
it.
doing making part-time YouTube videos, and all of a sudden within like a very short period you became a journalist for Auto Express, and then now you're Evo journalist. So how did that happen? Where did this journey start for the love of cars, and you decided to become a journalist within the car world?
Yeah, it's a bit of a long story actually. So my dad has always sold used cars for a living, and nothing like spectacular, no sports cars, Ferraris, anything like that, just normal cars. And he used to bring home just Golfs and Astras and whatever it was. So I always grew up around different cars, and that sort of interests me. And occasionally we'd have like a TT or something like semi interesting come through, and that's where it sort of started. And when I was about 7 or 8 years old, I decided to start kart racing with my dad. So we did like a sort of lad and dad team in karting, trying to move up the ranks. And yeah, when you're 8 years old, everybody wants to be an F1 driver or a racing driver or something like that. And that was the case. Like we were just like, okay, everybody starts at karts and we want to progress and just move up the ladder. But as you probably know, it's just not that simple these days. You need lots of cash and lots
And
of luck as
connections,
well.
yeah,
Yeah,
connections
yeah,
as
yeah.
well. Yeah,
You
yeah,
need to
yeah.
get spotted really.
I mean,
And you,
I've read somewhere that nowadays you need about 250,000 euros
yeah,
to get.
it's insane. I mean, some people I was racing with, they would spend 60, 70 grand on racing a go-kart for one season. And when you look at a go-kart, it's just a chassis, engine, tires, a steering wheel, and that's it. And they're spending like 60, 70 grand, which is insane. So what we did was we did it for about 9 years, won a few bits and pieces, but we never really took it to the next level where you'd need to spend that much money, like 60 or 70K. So we kept at sort of national level, club level. And after a while, I sort of thought the likelihood of this taking off is quite small, but I still want to do something to do with cars. So just before my A levels, we retired from karting, which was a shame. But we got everything we wanted out from the sport. Learned a lot
Yes.
about car control, vehicle dynamics, and stuff.
I can
And
see your
from that
trophies as
point
well behind. We could all see your trophies as well behind your.
oh yeah, 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 yeah.
So you
I
did
should
quite
put
well.
the blurred background button on
Yeah,
somewhere.
yeah.
but uh, but yeah, so from that point on, just I was getting into A levels. I thought I love cars, I love driving. The motorsport thing is probably a very slim chance of it working out. So the next best thing was driving cars for a living as a journalist, because I could see like journalists were living the best life. Obviously, you see Top Gear, like driving on track and having Ferraris delivered to your house all the time. So that was the dream. I was looking at that thinking, if I can't be a racing driver, that is what I want to do. And it sort of kicked off in a big-ish way when I started a motoring blog. And I was about 15 or 16, couldn't drive yet, and I'd just write really opinionated, like slightly controversial articles online. And that it didn't really take off in terms of numbers, but it gave me something to show magazines. Like I could email someone and say, look, I write for like in my spare time alongside school. What do you think? Where can I improve? Can I get work experience at some point? So stuff like that. It was a sort of door opener for me with writing the blog. And obviously, video at that time, this was 2016, 2017, video was huge at that point in time. So I thought, well, maybe video is something that I should get into as a practice session before I get into the real deal at some point. And that's how I started my YouTube channel. And it was never sort of intended to be something that gets me loads of views or lots of money. It was just a training ground, I'd say, and something else to show editors to be like, look, I can do writing and I do some video as well. So it was sort of another thing that I could have in my toolbox. And I did a few videos. I think that's how I met you, isn't it? Because you were doing a video, what was it, Concourse in London or
Yeah,
something
so
like that?
we met at London Concours a few years ago, and I was
Yeah,
just recording my one of my first vlogs, and your dad came up to me when I had a gimbal in my hand and said, "What are you doing with this gimbal?" And that's how we were
yeah.
introduced. Yeah, and that's how we
'Cause we
became
looked
friends.
over,
So
and there's not a lot of Asians in these kind of events, and we're like, hang on, this guy's like an Asian like us. He's doing a video like us, but he's got this like wacky little contraption that's making his phone hover. And we're like, we need to find out what that is because
yeah,
that's
I mean,
really
this was when people started using gimbals. For it was one of the it's quite early. And yeah, your dad came up to me and said, "What are you doing?" And I said, "I've just got this." It's the first time or second time I was using it, and that's how we became friends. It was weird. I said, "I gave you my Instagram," and we just started talking, and then you joined like an Instagram group, and we just that's how we kept in touch, and we became really good friends after that. And I
yeah,
think
yeah,
yeah, and I thought when I watched your one of your vlogs, and I thought this guy's too good to be on YouTube. Like he needs to be somebody. He needs to do this full time because you were still studying and you were just recording videos in your spare time. And I thought the way he drives and the way he presents, this guy needs to do this at a professional level. I can see him becoming professional. So
thanks, man. I appreciate that.
obviously as your journey, we're going to talk about how you going to talk about how you got into becoming a professional journalist. You
Yeah.
know, that's when you actually achieve that. That's why I was really happy because I thought finally there's a talent that's actually got where it should be. So you want to
Oh,
carry
thanks,
on?
man. No, that's really kind because when you start off, I mean, it might have been the same with you. When you start off doing videos, it's something totally new, and you're like, "Am I even good at this?" It's just so awkward to just talk at like a camera that's not talking back, and you're just by yourself. And it's I found it really strange to begin with, but I guess the more you do it, the more normal it becomes. And
Yeah.
yeah,
I still feel like I'm an idiot when you're talking to
oh,
yourself.
we all do, man.
Yeah,
I think
and
everybody does.
I'm becoming better. I mean, this year for the first time, I managed to do it while I'm on my own. So I was vlogging and like nobody was standing next to me because normally I have a friend with me. I said I like have them stand next to me, so I feel like I'm not talking by myself
Yeah,
to
it's
build my
like you're talking
confidence.
to us, isn't it, when we're next to you?
Yeah, it's much easier to talk to someone when they're standing next to you or when there's no camera around. I
Yeah,
think the way you talk in front of a camera, even the way we're talking right now, is not. There's still that kind of a barrier. Well, if I was talking to you face to face, it'll be slightly the language you use will be slightly different, and the way we approach each other will be slightly different because there's no audience. It's just the two of us.
yeah,
There's
yeah.
no
Like
there's
I'm
no.
just staring at my laptop right now,
Yeah,
and having
exactly.
a
Yeah,
conversation. It's still a bit weird, but
yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
it's the best we can do, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Um, but yeah, I guess back to the story.
Yeah, I
Uh,
think you're naturally gifted as a person. When I saw you on camera for the first time, I thought this guy is really good. He needs to have a lot more subscribers if he's not going to become like a journalist, then he should have 50, 100, 200,000 subscribers because I think that's the way you're presenting. Um,
oh, thanks, man. No, I really
and
appreciate
also
that.
the way you drive, which we can come to.
All legal, of course.
Of course, it's all legal,
Yeah, no speeding.
no speeding, and yeah. So I'll leave a link down below anyway, for people can take a look at how you
Cool,
really
cool,
drive.
cool. Awesome. Um, yeah, so then I started the video stuff, and that did give me a sort of practice ground because I didn't want to end up getting a job at some point and then being thrown onto YouTube and practicing in front of like hundreds of thousands of subscribers. It was just going to be a bit of a train wreck, I thought. So I got my practice in with my own channel and a few hundred subs. And I guess it all kicked off. I was actually at work experience at Autocar magazine, and I drove my old Alpha along. I've got a Julius Super from 1972, so I drove that along from Cardiff to London in the Autocar office, and I told the guys at Autocar that I bought my old car along, and they're like, "Oh, we want you to write a story about it." I was like, "Oh, that's really cool! Like to get to write for Autocar for the website." I thought that was really awesome. So I knocked something quick together for them and just posted it everywhere I could. I was like, "Oh my god, this is insane!" Like Autocar let me write for them. one of the biggest UK car magazines. And from that, I got a message, and somebody said, "Oh, there's this writing competition going on. It's a Haggerty Young Writer competition. It was 2019." And I thought, okay, why don't I just enter this article that I've just written for Autocar? So I took like the raw copy that hadn't been edited, and I went through it again and just like sort of tweaked it and made it a bit longer and fleshed it out. And I sent it in, and it was on the night of the deadline that you had to submit your entry to the competition. So I thought, okay, this is really tight. They've probably chosen the winner already. It's been like a couple of weeks since this competition's been live. And after a while, I got a message from Andrew Frankel, who's one of the judges, and John Mayhead as well, who is part of the Haggerty editorial team.
You want to tell
And
people who Andrew Franco is, because some people might not have heard of him. I mean, we know who he is, but some
yeah,
people
yeah,
listening abroad might not know. So,
yeah,
um,
he's one of the most respected journalists in the country, and probably the world, I'd say. I mean, he's probably not going to listen to this, but
yeah,
he would.
he's not going to listen to
Um,
my little podcast, but he's one of the most
yeah,
respected journalists. Everybody in journalism respects what he has to say.
yeah.
So,
Like he
the
was the
fact,
first guy to ever do a review on the McLaren F1 at the time. McLaren chose him and Autocar to do the first road test, so that gives you an idea of what
yeah,
kind of guy he is. But yeah, so I got an email from the competition guys, and they were like, "We really like your stuff, but there are two other entries that we like just as much." And it was sort of like a three-way tie. And they said, "Oh, we need you to write something else on a random topic that's not of your choosing, and we'll select the winner from there." And it was the Bugatti Type 57 Atalante that was
Atlantic.
going up for auction at the time with Bonhams, which was 2019, which is a long time ago. But I had no idea about these sort of pre-war cars, and I just researched it and threw something together. And I wasn't that confident because I thought this is out of my comfort zone. Like I can write about my own car because I know it so well and I love it and I know everything about it. But this Bugatti was like a bit left field for me. But I ended up coming second in the end, which I was really happy with. I didn't expect to come second when I entered that night when I was doing work experience. And yeah, so after that, I got in touch with Andrew just to ask him what I could have done better. Not as in like I wasn't proud of coming second, but just how can I improve? Because I was still young. I didn't have a job in the industry, so there's plenty to learn. And he sent me a really long email giving me loads of advice, career path advice, and things like that. How can I improve my writing and things? So that was really helpful, and that gave me a bit of a relationship with Andrew at the time. And yeah, I was still studying. I did a couple weeks more at Autocar work experience wise after that, and then I think it really got rolling when Andrew Frankel and Dan Prosser launched Drive Nation. So that was like a Instagram based car magazine thing where they used to upload 5 pictures and 5 captions like in each post, like a quick review or a news story or something like that. And it's actually really good. It got like 40,000 followers in the end, and it's still going, of course, right now as the intercooler. But I got in touch with Andrew and I asked him if I could do a quick piece on my Julia for the Instagram page. And I told him, I was like, I don't need any payment. It'd just be really cool to have my stuff on the intercooler or Drive Nation at the time. And he was sort of he's a bit cautious. He was like, if you send over what you have, we'll have a look, but it might be a no. So let's see. So I sent him a quick story about my Alpha, and waited about a week or so. And then he said, "Oh, actually, we might want to publish this." So I sent him over some pictures of the car, and that went up on the Instagram page,
I
and that was
remember
really
that.
cool.
I remember that.
Yeah, yeah, that was awesome
Yeah.
because I didn't know when it was going to go live. I used to refresh my feed, and then I saw my output, and I was like, "Oh, that's so awesome." um,
But it kind of
and
shows that you have to, if you persevere and if you work at it, you can doors can open up for you.
yeah, yeah, it's crazy because like just sending that email to Andrew after the competition opened up that door, which then opened up many more doors afterwards. So as soon as my piece got published, I noticed that Stuart Gallagher, who's the editor of Evo and now my boss, which is a bit weird, he followed me on Twitter, and I was thinking that is insane. Like somebody who works at Evo just followed me. So I slid in his DM straight away, and I was like, "Hi Stu, like I'm a big fan of your stuff." I didn't really pursue anything else because I knew that Evo was such a tightly knit team and it didn't change much. But I just wanted to sort of build a relationship with him, and we got chatting a bit, and he was like, "Oh, do you want to send me some examples of your work and video stuff?" So I did that, and we ended up having quite a long conversation on the phone about where I wanted to go career wise. And he said, like Evo is just such a tightly knit team. It doesn't change very often. You've got established journalists there, so there's nothing at the time that I could sort of worm my way in terms of getting a role at Evo. But he did say that obviously you've got the company Autovia, which sort of umbrellas over Evo, Auto Express, Octane, Car Buyer, other titles like that. And he said those other titles sometimes have openings. So he suggested that I pursue one of those with the goal of someday switching over to Evo, which I thought was really nice of him. He put me in touch with a couple of guys at Auto Express. And yeah, that's how I ended up getting my Auto Express role after doing a couple of interviews and stuff. And yeah, I did that for a year and a half at Auto Express.
What was that like? Because
Oh,
I know you drove some pretty insane cars while you were there. I mean, the
yeah,
ones that come to mind is a Lamborghini Huracan STO, and then a weird Skoda that did like 250 miles an hour or something, which
yeah,
completely shocked me. It's like,
yeah.
you want to talk about some of the highlights from that job? Mm.
Yeah, it was absolutely crazy. So I started off thinking, okay, I know that when you're new in this industry, you don't get all the amazing opportunities. You don't get to book in press cars and stuff. You're sort of sent on minor jobs and car reveals and things. So I expected that to begin with, and for a while that's what it was like. But I think it was 3 or 4 months into the job that somebody had to pull out of a launch, and it was a launch of the BMW iX and BMW i4. And my boss at the time got on the phone and he was like, Yusuf, can you do this launch? It's tomorrow. And I was like, okay, like what car is it? And they were like, oh, it's the first like bespoke electric BMW for ages. And it sets the tone for one of the biggest car manufacturers for the next 5 or 10 years or so. It's a really important car. Can you do the launch? And I was like, yeah, okay, I can do that. That's fine. And they're like, oh, by the way, it's in Germany tomorrow and the flight is in the morning. And I was like, damn, right. But yeah, I thought, oh, that's amazing. This is what I've been wanting to do, test new cars and sort of go in and review a car that people hadn't driven yet. Because I think that's the true test, because you know how good a car is if it's been out for 6 months or a year and other people have driven it. But I enjoyed the idea of going in with something completely fresh and assessing it and seeing how my views stack up to other experienced journalists. So I was like, yeah, I'll do that. So I went on the launch. It was pretty hectic, and got the two reviews of the two cars and two video reviews as well. So that was really fun. And I think from that point, Auto Express started giving me a bit more of an opportunity to get stuck in with launches and stuff. So that's when the Skoda thing came about. When I got the email about that, I was like, hold on, there's got to be a typo here. They're like, Skoda Octavia does 200 and something miles an hour. And I was like, nah, that's definitely a mistake. Like it's the new VRS or something. But it was. They were like, yeah, you can just jump in and have a go around the Millbrook Bowl, which was really interesting.
How
And
fast did you get in that car? Because I can't remember how.
so this is a bit this is a bit disappointing, but they told me and all the other journalists, they were like, you can only go to 80 miles an hour in this land speed record car. So on the video, because I did a video on that car as well, the test driver is absolutely sending it, and he was driving for all the B-roll, and I was just in the car for the pieces to camera doing 80 miles an hour, acting like I was going really fast.
Okay, so that's a typical what you see on TV quite often when it comes
Yeah,
to
yeah,
driving.
yeah. I
Yeah,
mean, I gave it the
B-roll.
beat. It was ridiculously quick. I think it was running 500 horsepower at the time, so a bit less than the record run that it did. But yeah, that was awesome. Other stuff, that Lamborghini event was insane in Scotland with all the current Lambos, SVJ, STO, those Urus there as well. And it was -1 and just like being on the
Yeah.
edge. cars on the best roads you've ever seen,
Didn't
and
you say
just
that the Huracan was like one of the best? STO was one of the best cars you've ever driven, or something?
oh yeah, 100%. That is still top two cars I've ever driven because I got in it. I'd actually driven the SVJ beforehand, and I was like, okay, this car is peak supercar because it had everything. It was so much drama going on, so much communication as well. It's quite physical, and obviously the gear change and stuff,
Mm.
and the noise. And I was like, how can anything be more dramatic than this or exciting from behind the wheel? And then I got on the STO, and it had all of that drama, all the noise, and all the communication through the chassis, but with loads of poise, and it felt like half a ton lighter, and it was rear-wheel drive, so that was just stunning.
I mean, that's basically a race car for the road, isn't it? Really.
It is, yeah,
I
that's
mean,
pretty
it's
much
not.
what
It's
it is.
very different to the standard Huracan. Even the clamshell, the way it opens in the front, and
Yeah, yeah,
the
yeah.
aero is
I drove the
completely
Evo
different.
that same day, and the Evo was like really nice. Obviously, incredible engine, revs to 8.5, really sings. But the chassis was good, but it wasn't the party piece. It was all about the motor. But then in the STO, I think the chassis comes to meet the engine, and they're both the highlights when you drive it. That car is just. I want to get in another one at some point. I don't know how, but
Mm.
I need to find an excuse to book one in and just have one for a week. I would just go nuts if I could.
It's good. It's good to see Lamborghini actually applying their racing um, knowledge to a road car,
Yeah.
because the STO I think will go down as one of their great cars because I like it a lot. I'm not. It doesn't make much sense, but no Lamborghini does in many ways.
Yeah.
But it's such a extreme car,
Mm.
and
You
it
just got to embrace the madness with it, really.
yeah.
You
I
got
mean,
to
that's what
get
you
it.
do with Lamborghini. I mean, I'm a Ferrari through and through person, but I love Lamborghini as well. I'm a
Mm.
huge fan of Lamborghini, especially like the cars like the Countach and Diablo, which for me were like peak Lamborghini in terms of design and
Yeah,
even engineering as well. The Countach, from an engineering point of view, if people understand it, it's basically a race car for the road.
yeah, yeah,
Especially the Countach S onwards. All the Walter Wolf connection and Delara and all them. We can definitely separate podcast maybe one day we can do that, but
yeah, yeah,
yeah, because that was basically a race car for the road from the S onwards, and people don't understand that car. And I think
yeah,
cars
yeah.
like
Exactly.
the Huracan STO kind of reminds me of that in some ways. Maybe the SVJ, but I don't really know much about that car compared to the STO. So
Yeah,
I
yeah.
mean,
It's a Lambo that goes back to Lambo's roots, which was more than just like showing off at 10 miles an hour around central London. I mean, there'll be loads of STOs doing that, but you can take it to a circuit and it will just completely come alive and blow your socks off.
that's if you're
Um,
allowed to, though, isn't it? Because the car is too loud in promo circus.
yeah, yeah, that's true. Yeah, you need those big silencers, the big cans on the back.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
But yeah, other stuff. There was a Nissan Duke rally car prototype thing that I drove in the Sahara, which was fun. Hydraulic handbrake and stuff. A really weird looking machine, and it had I think 140 horsepower, so it wasn't
It wasn't
exactly like
fancy.
a fire breathing WRC car, but that was fun. Yeah, just a few oddball cars and the usual sort of normal stuff like Honda Ioniq 6, mainstream cars like that.
But you
I
travel
got
a lot, don't you? Even like, I mean, you've been traveling a lot in the last year and a half, couple of years.
Yeah, it's been pretty crazy. I mean, before starting as a motoring journalist, I probably traveled abroad twice a year, if that. And now it's more like 4 times a month or 3 times a month.
Yeah.
It's
Anybody
just
who
it
follows
is
you on
it's
Instagram will see you traveling in 1 minute in one country, and next minute it's like, how does this guy even get from there to there so quickly?
yeah. It looks all glamorous, but honestly, when you go there, you've got a job to do, and you literally see the whole city from a minibus. So I was in
Okay.
Paris the other day, and you get out of the station, like, oh wow, this is amazing. Straight in a minibus in the back of the van, you go to a studio, you go inside the dark studio, do your thing, get interviews, take pictures of the car, and then you leave back in the minibus and go straight back on the train. It's like it looks really glamorous, but those photos you're seeing are just me outside the station, just like taking photos while I'm outside.
Was that
Uh,
the Lamborghini event that you went to, or was that in the UK? Did you saw the
uh,
Revuelto or Revolto? I can't remember. I don't know
Oh,
how.
that was at Silverstone. That was at
Okay.
Silverstone. Yeah, yeah. So that was fairly local. I say local, it's 3.5 hours for me, but
Mm.
it's closer than a lot of them are. Yeah, that was pretty interesting. But yeah, so the Auto Express thing was amazing. It went by really quickly because I got to do so much stuff, and I think I was really lucky that I had good people around me that let me get stuck in with the more serious stuff from time to time, and that's actually how the Evo thing materialized. So I was on the launch of the, what was it, the Vauxhall Astra GSE. That was it. So like
Wow, that's a highlight car.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
No
One
offense
for
to
the
Vauxhall Astra owners, but yeah.
yeah, and the Grandland GSE as well was there, so that was properly exciting. Uh, but yeah, so I saw Stuart Gallagher there, and me and Stu, we hadn't really spoken since that time when he put me in touch with Auto Express. We bumped into each other every now and then, but nothing like serious. So I thought, oh, this is a nice time to sort of catch up with Stu after all that time, see what he's up to, and maybe have a chat about where I want to go in my career and stuff. So we ended up being partners. So I did one stint in the Astra, and then he did the other stint, and that was perfect because we just had loads of time in the car. We got to chat about like old Lotus leases and stuff because he really wants one, and I've got an old S1 myself, so that's
Yeah.
took quite a
I
lot.
hope that I played a small role in that when you bought that because
Yeah, you
you were
did.
talking about it and like everybody in our group was like slagging it off and I'm the one that said I sent you a private DM and said, you know what, if I were you, I'll go for it because I
Yeah,
think
just go for it. Yeah,
yeah,
and
because
it's
it's
the best car I've ever driven. I adore it, so I do owe a lot to you for getting that
thank
car.
you.
Yeah, but yeah, so I got chatting to Stu. We spoke about like Evo and how it came about and how things were going at Auto Express. And yeah, I didn't really think much of it. We just spent some time talking, getting to know each other, which was nice because we hadn't really spoken before that. And yeah, when I came back from that event, it sort of materialized that it might be possible for me to move over to Evo at some point, or at least do some bits and pieces work-wise for them because we're all under the same company. And so I thought, wow, that is like really cool. I'd love to just even write the odd feature or story or whatever it was. And and yeah, things sort of snowballed from there. Really, had a couple of meetings and ended up moving over to a full-time role at Evo. So it's quite a long journey, but you can see how like the initial steps were really small. Me just entering a competition in 2019 and somehow managing to get to Evo magazine. So yeah, it's been quite a journey.
How's it how's it been at Evo since you got started? I know it's only been a few weeks,
Yeah,
but I know that
it's
you wanted to work there from quite a young age because you put that picture up of you and Evo when you were a little kid when you got your first magazine,
yeah.
and now has it turned out to be what you expected, or is it are you looking forward to learning more, and are you learning more every single day? Is it, I mean, I expect it to be quite an experience to get your dream job in many ways.
Yeah, man. Yeah, it's been pretty full on to start with, but in a good way because I didn't want to come here and just be like doing bits and pieces and have it going at a sort of slow pace. So there's stuff going on all the time, events and stuff to write. You're never sort of sat at your laptop wondering what to do, which is a good thing because I'm getting to learn from probably the best in the business, I'd say, at Evo.
Mm.
How to carry myself, how to write, and even presenting, and how to carry out a successful shoot for the magazine and stuff. So that's been really helpful. But I mean, we can talk about it as being a job. It doesn't feel like a job most of the time. I mean, there are bits where you're writing 2,000 words for a deadline the next day, and it can feel like normal work. But then when you think about what you're writing about, it could be a new Lamborghini that's been released, and it's properly interesting stuff. So I guess with Evo, the main thing I'm noticing is that all the sort of cars that I'm not too interested in, the Tiguan special editions and the Astra GSEs and stuff, I'm not having to do much with those cars. It's all interesting stuff. So like Hyundai i20N all the way to a BMW M5 or something like that. And yeah, it's just been pretty mega. I've always wanted to work for Evo because I feel like more than any other magazine, they put you in the driver's seat of a car and they tell you exactly what that car feels like, what it's like to drive, beyond just the sort of objective measures like, oh, it rides like this over these kinds of roads, the steering is this sort of weighting. You really get sucked into the driving experience when you read an Evo piece. And being surrounded by such talent, I'm sort of hoping that over time I'll be able to write stories in that way because those are the ones that I like writing myself and like reading. So yeah, it's been pretty epic so far. I have to say it's been awesome.
is there anything that you can tell us up and coming in terms of your what stories you could be doing? Um,
Yeah, there's a couple. So there's one which is a bit of a strange one. It's a commercial shoot, so it's more of a sponsored video, but it involved some quite interesting events. So we took an M5 CS to Bedford Autodrome just outside the Evo office, and I was with my co-presenter from Auto Express, Nicola Hume, and we were driving around the track, and it's a piece about why performance fuels, in particular Shell V-Power, might be worthwhile putting in your car. And it sounds really boring and serious, but basically we were just blattering around the track and burning rubber and doing all sorts. And then we drove to Germany to see the Shell factory, to see how it was all produced. So that's going to be a video and a magazine feature coming up. So that's pretty cool. Other than that, we've got uh, well, there's actually quite a few events going on this month. One of which is a Ferrari event, which I'm super excited about. So that's visiting Fiorano and seeing how their driver training course with the classic cars operates. So I'll be driving a 308 around Fiorano, which just baffles me. I don't think I'll be able to concentrate the whole time. I'll just be like a fanboy walking around, just gobsmacked, because
that sounds
that
like a that sounds like a dream assignment. I mean,
yeah, yeah. When I saw the email come through, I was like, nah, this can't be real. And I was sort of kidding myself, like, no, I need to wait until it's absolutely confirmed. I've got the flight tickets, I'm on the plane, and then it's really happening because it just seems like completely surreal. So that's one of those events that you do remember, and it's the ones that people think about when they want to join a job like this. It's those kind of events, so that should be pretty awesome. And this other event I've got coming up, it's a bit more uncertain, let's say, because of like logistical reasons and things like that. But I may be entering a race with Janetta at Silverstone in the next couple of weeks. So that's with the G56 GTA car. So it's a V6 powered, front engine, rear drive, sort of baby GT car. And that'll be for a feature as well, and potentially a bit of video content too. So that'll involve me going to the factory beforehand, doing a sim session on Janetta Simulator, and driving the car, hopefully on a test day before the race and stuff like that. So that's going to be really fun if that comes off. Just getting to race
you're
again
going
after
back to
all
your
these
roots.
years.
Yeah, you're going back to your
Yeah,
roots.
yeah, it'll be awesome. Wonder if I've still got it. We'll have to see.
I think you do from the video footage I've seen the way you drive. You still got it.
Yeah, let's hope so. Yeah,
uh,
yeah.
so I mean, just to conclude, because I think we're kind of running out of time now. I mean, what advice would you give to young people? I mean, in less than a minute, so we say.
Yeah. I mean, I would say for young people, the main thing is get practicing as early as you can and use your age as an advantage. So start writing as early as you can, do the video stuff, and you'll sort of get a really good basis and a bit of a head start if you start off young. And you'll probably build as someone who will stand out a bit more. Because if you're at like 18, 19 and you can write really well and you can present, then you're in a really good position and people are going to notice you. But aside from that, aside from having the actual talent to do it, I think you've just got to get your foot in the door in any way you can. So, writing competitions, emailing editors, any way you can build a relationship with any of these brands that you aspire to work for will probably pay off in time. Because if you stay in regular contact and you send them your work and things and you're a known quantity, if there's an opportunity to join them for a full-time role, you're front and center, you're in pole position, and they probably will consider you. So just build as early as you can, build that repertoire and that portfolio of work, and then just send it out to as many people as you can, and hopefully something will stick and it will just snowball like it often does.
Okay, I think that's a good place to finish this podcast. I just want to say a huge thank you for joining me, and also again congratulations for joining Evo, and
Thank you, man.
everybody listening at home. Thank you very much for listening, and I'll see you next time. Bye.